right, we are live, Dr. Rhiannon. I am so honored and excited to have you here. We've been trying to do this for a long time.
We
Today,
have.
we're going to focus on sleep, however. We're going to try to narrow down the topics, although, PX chiropractic covers everything. So, Dr. Rhiannon specializes in PX chiropractic, which is neurologically based chiropractic care. Very different from what you know as traditional. There's not too many people in the country that are doing this. So I'm just so honored to have you here. I'm so happy that you're in the Capital District. So let's talk firstly about how the central nervous system gets whacked out and how that affects, it definitely affects everything in the body, but we're going to focus today on sleep.
Oh my gosh, Dale, you are incredible. And we absolutely love working with you. So yes, I am one doctor of a network of doctors called PX Docs, where we do neurologically focused chiropractic, which is very different from spine-based chiropractic. So we focus on the central and autonomic nervous system. So I want to keep this really accessible for people. And this is exactly what I do inside of my clinic. Won't make you know all the fancy doctor words, right? But so your autonomic nervous system, think it sounds automatic. You are not in conscious control of it. So your brain is receiving information, millions of pieces of information every second from your external environment through our five senses, right? So what I'm seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, as well as information from our internal environment. And I think a lot of people don't think about that part. So up my spinal cord is all the information about what's happening in every other system of my body. So my brain can take that information, combine it with external environment information, and make decisions. The brain's job is to make decisions that are appropriate for the environment. So to your question about how it gets whacked out, I love that term, that's great, is we live in an environment here in the United States that is incredibly stressful for our nervous system. It is not what our nervous system was designed to handle. I love to tell patients we've got traffic, we've got toxins, we've got technology, right? We've got taxes, right? We've got all of that. And our nervous system wasn't meant to handle all of that. Physical stresses, when we're talking about pediatric, because a huge part of my practice is pediatric, about 2/3 of it is birth trauma, right? We have a lot of birth interventions in this country, inducing C-sections, forceps delivery, vacuum extraction. And I'm not saying that those things aren't important and don't save lives, both maternal and baby, but we need to take into account the physical stress that puts specifically on this top part of the nervous system, which I know because I follow you and all of your videos and the things that you talk about. I know that your people know about vagus nerve, right? The gut-brain connection. I do wish that it would be called the brain-gut connection, but that's all right. And that's vagus nerve, right? Vagus nerve comes out right up here and it goes to thyroid and heart and lungs and our digestive system. It's responsible for calming everything in our system. So that is part of our autonomic nervous system. It's one side, which is parasympathetic. But I tell patients, you don't have to remember that word. Just think P for peaceful. Okay, when we are at rest, when things are calm, it calms the system down so we can sleep, so we can digest, so our immune system can function, so we can heal and grow and repair. But when the brain perceives a stress, and the word perceive is very, very important, okay? When the brain perceives a stress, it puts us in the other side of the autonomic nervous system, which is sympathetic. S, think stress. That's known as fight or flight. There's also, there's fight, flight, freeze, fawn. There's a lot of different stages of it. That's survival. That is protection mode. So when we go into sympathetic, S for stress, parasympathetic is shut off. We can only be in one side of the system at any moment, at any time. So that means we don't have to digest our breakfast right now. We don't need to be able to go to sleep. We don't need to be able to fight off the cold virus. We don't need to do any of those things because we just need to survive this moment. That's an incredibly intelligent short-term solution built into our nervous system for survival. But it was built into our nervous system when the things we had to survive were famine and plague and saber-toothed tigers, right? Not traffic, not you waking up to an alarm. I mean, by definition, waking up to an alarm in the morning starts you off in sympathetic. not parasympathetic. So when we're talking about our children, we have to realize, first, there's a ton of maternal stress during pregnancy. So when mom is under a lot of stress, maybe they're concerned because they've gone through fertility treatments and they're afraid to lose the baby. Maybe they're changing jobs, moving homes, getting married, raising another toddler while they're pregnant with this one. All those stress hormones in mom's body cross the placenta, and that affects the developing architecture of the autonomic nervous system for that child. So they already have a tendency to be more sympathetic dominant. And then you add birth trauma, damaging that vagus nerve. And then we have all these environmental stressors, right? We have early use of antibiotics when there's a ton of ear infections and things happening, which one day when we have that interview, we can talk about why ear infections are caused by this. So we have just a lot of environmental stressors. We are pushing kids to go to school and have cognitive ability earlier and earlier and earlier, instead of letting that real natural brain development through the stages happen naturally. We're forcing them to read at age 3, and as opposed to all the other brain development that should be happening. And so there's a lot of factors, but really just think about environmental stresses, whether it's physical, chemical, or mental, emotional, that's throwing the system off. And so when the brain is perceiving a stress, it throws us into sympathetic, which shuts down that gut. And that's where that gut-brain connection comes from, and why the gut needs to be supported so much. And that's something that you talk about so much with the MRA products.
Yeah, I talk a lot with, moms with kids with neurodivergent. So I know we're going off on a little bit of tangent, which I knew we probably would.
Because we could do this for hours, right?
I know, we could. We absolutely could. But can you just touch a little bit on when that parasympathetic is shut down and it's now in sympathetic, the child's ability to focus? So all these kids that are being diagnosed with ADHD and various other things, can you talk just about that, and then we'll jump into the sleep? I promise.
The interesting thing about it is they're actually super focused, but they're being diagnosed as not being able to focus. So when we are in sympathetic, I'm sure you've heard the phrase to see the forest instead of just the trees, right? Well, when we're in sympathetic, we're only seeing the trees. We are hyper focused, and you'll see some of these kids, they're looping. They can't get off a certain topic. They want to keep talking about the same thing over and over. They're hyper focused on the one thing that they care about. Because when we're in sympathetic, it doesn't matter. I don't need to see the whole forest. I don't need the whole context. When I'm in sympathetic, I'm right here. I just want to deal with this one thing right now. Whereas parasympathetic is that big picture. I have context for things. I'm taking into consideration the whole story. So think about, for example, when you have a kid that you are asking to sit in a classroom, not move their body, right? And so now, this is getting real detailed, but the pump between the occiput, which is the base of the skull, right at that brainstem area where that vagus nerve comes out, and the sacrum, which is the base of the spine, that pump, that gets shut down when I'm stuck sitting on my sacrum all day. Well, actually, I have a little chart here, and I know it's backwards for everyone, but you can see we have sympathetic and parasympathetic. Well, you can see down here by the sacrum, 10% of our parasympathetic input is, but 90% of our parasympathetic comes out right here, vagus nerve. So when we have occiput here and sacrum here shut down, that has us stuck in sympathetic. And so those kids, it's not that they can't focus. They're only focused on the one thing. You can't get them out of what they're focused on onto what you want them to focus on. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. So that input coming into the brain up from the spinal cord, it feeds right into the cerebellum. And the cerebellum needs to decide, am I going to send this to the amygdala because I want to have an instinctual emotional survival response, sympathetic, or is this safe? Is this calm and peaceful? I'll send that information all the way to the prefrontal cortex where I can have context and make logical decisions, critical thinking. And so you'll see these kids, I see parents all the time saying to kids, use your words, tell us how you're feeling. Because they want their kids to be able to express it. They know they have language. Why are they so locked in? It's because they're in that reptile brain, in that instinctual fight or flight state. And the first phase of that, because we go through phases of sympathetic dominance, the first phase of dysregulation in the nervous system is that sympathetic stuck on. We can't get out of this sympathetic. And when that is persistently on for a long time, then we go into neurological confusion, because now the brain isn't communicating well with the gut, isn't communicating well with the immune system, isn't communicating well with all of that regulatory mechanisms, the homeostasis, the set point. None of that matters when we're in sympathetic. But when that is persistent, now we have neurological confusion. And so you start to see the other systems of the body, the cardiovascular system, high heart rate, the breathing. You'll see these children, they're respirating, they're having shallow breaths, right? Because they're in that sympathetic. They're not taking deep, calming breaths. It's affecting the digestive system. It's affecting the immune system. So now the systems start to get out of whack, which is what functional or integrative medicine providers are looking at, is that gut and immune stuff. They're looking at all the lab work and trying to supplement and detox and assist these other systems, but they're in confusion because the nervous system is dysregulated. And then that third phase of dysregulation after neurological confusion is neurological exhaustion. That sympathetic system becomes exhausted. We run out of the stress hormones. We've stressed out the adrenal glands. There's only so long they can continually pump out cortisol. And that's when you see these kids really that sunken and exhausted posture. Like when I'm talking about exhaustion, I don't mean they're sleepy. I mean, like they just can't integrate anything. You just can't get the motivation out of them. That's when you see those exhausted teenagers with all the digestive issues. If they're girls, a lot of times you're seeing a lot of reproductive function, menstrual cycle irregularities. You're seeing symptoms now, signs and symptoms of all that confusion in the other systems. And so what we're looking at is, let's go to the beginning. Let's go to the autonomic nervous system and help that get balanced and adapt better to the stressful environment. Because I wish that I could take stress away from everyone, right? I wish that I could, but I can't change this. You know, parents are running kids from school to practice, or, you know, there's sports and there's gymnastics and there's piano and these kids are so overscheduled. There's no time to even eat. So we got to stop and get fast food. We got to stop and do that. It's just go, 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 go. There's no time for their nervous system to come into parasympathetic. And then to bring this back to sleep for you, because I know that's what you want to talk about today. And then we're asking them to just go, boop, turn it off and go to sleep. Now get some rest. I mean, how do you expect their nervous system to do that? And so what so many families are doing now is relying on melatonin, right? Whether it's the adults or the children, they're like, oh, well, we're just giving them melatonin that will help them sleep. But now melatonin was supposed to be created by your nervous system on its own, right? It's a chemical that's made, the neurohormone system, right? Every system has neuro in front of it because no system works without the nervous system. And so now we're supplementing with something that was supposed to be made naturally in our body. And so what does the brain do? The brain is always learning, always, always, always learning. It says, oh, I don't got to make this anymore. Thank you so much for helping me out. I don't need to make this anymore. So now you become dependent on melatonin as opposed to really looking at the root cause and regulating the system, because the sleep problem isn't the big problem. It's the big problem affecting your life right now, right? Especially if your little kid is waking up 2-3 times a night, coming into your bed, waking you up. It's disrupting the whole family. Everybody's sleep is disrupted. But we know that sleep being disrupted is a sign of the autonomic nervous system being dysregulated. But we don't just go based on signs and symptoms, right? Of course, they're important and we don't want to ignore them by any means. But we do scans in our office that will show us, is this sleep problem because we have dysregulation in the nervous system? The scans will show us. And if it's not, then hey, let's get you to another provider. I mean, we have great resources here locally, incredible nurse practitioners locally that I love to work with, that I can say, hey, can you take on this case and dive a little deeper if it's not a nervous system issue, right? Or even if it was a nervous system issue, we can get them through that and restore that regulation to the nervous system. And then they can move forward with different supplementation, different functional and integrative methods to help support those other systems in their healing process.
Wow. This is just fascinating information, and I just want this to get out to everyone because it's so important,
Yeah.
especially these little kids. I'm going to ask you to go back one more time.
Yeah.
Speech delays, which I see all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You
Okay.
talk about
So
that.
speech, a lot of speech is motor, right? It's motor movement of the muscles of the tongue, the mouth, the jaw. It's a lot of motor. And so actually, we talk about the hierarchy of healing and the hierarchy of development in my office a lot. We have a big triangle, a giant, like 3-foot triangle on the wall in every room showing the hierarchy of development. So the autonomic nervous system starts developing at 6 weeks in utero. So 6 weeks inside mama's belly. Okay. So we got to start there, right? If we're going to go with healing, we have to start with healing the system that developed first. But the next system that develops is motor, tone, and coordination, right? So some of that has to develop in utero. Actually, the first nerves to myelinate, to get their coating that makes them fast and work well, are the motor nerves in utero, because they need to be able to suck and latch when they're born. So another big sign of autonomic nervous system dysregulation, even when they're born, is they're having trouble latching, they're having trouble sucking. So we already know we've got some motor stuff going on when there's issues with that. And so then that's what they're progressing with. That motor system is developing in that beginning of life. That's why they're holding their head up. They're starting to be able to lift their body up, sit, crawl, pull themselves up, stand, all those milestones that everyone knows, right? So when we're looking at speech issues, a lot of it is disruption in that motor development because the autonomic nervous system is dysregulated. Because like I said, sympathetic, survival. It is protection and survival mode. In parasympathetic, growth, healing, development. So our nervous system isn't focused on that development if it's only focused on survival right now. So that's where you'll see, again, I said the latching, you'll see babies that are colicky, which I love how no medical doctor has an answer for what colic is. Colic is your digestive system is not functioning properly, the motility and the absorption of the nutrients, because parasympathetic is what makes motility, the movement through the digestive system, the swallowing, relaxes the rectum so that we can expel. And so we go through these different layers where you have the colicky baby, they're having a hard time latching. Then you've got the congested and snotty toddler because they can't drain in here, because up here in that upper cervical where the occiput C1, C2 are, where that vagus nerve is out of alignment. And that's where the eustachian tubes go right over. And so those eustachian tubes get kinked, they're not draining well, and you got that sick toddler all the time, and you're going on that route that we've got antibiotics for the ear infections, all of that stuff. And then we keep going into the developmental stuff, the anxiety, the behavioral, the tantrums, because after motor development, gut and immune, and then brain, that's where we're looking at speech, cognition, behavioral, emotional, which usually when families are coming into our practice, because most people aren't familiar with neurological chiropractic, they're familiar with spine-based chiropractic. And why would you bring your baby or your child to a spine-based chiropractor? That's really hard to wrap your mind around, right? So most people aren't aware of what we do, or even that we have scans that are so easy, painless, no radiation, to detect, locate, and measure if there's stress stuck in that autonomic nervous system. And so we're usually their last resort. 10 years ago, I've been in practice, next month it'll be 15 years. 10 years ago, intakes, parents were writing all the other things that they had tried, which were all medical interventions, right? It was, we've tried these medications, we've tried these antibiotics, maybe we've tried, the medications for ADHD, all of that. We've done PT, we've done OT, we've done speech, and now we're here. What I'm seeing now, a decade later, is now they've exhausted all the functional medicine stuff too. We've taken, 15 supplements a day, and we've done the hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and we've done the IV drips, and they're doing all the other functional medicine stuff too. And they're getting results. Like, don't get me wrong. Movement-based therapies, PT, OT, speech, absolutely incredible therapies and beneficial therapies for children. Functional medicine interventions, absolutely beneficial. But when we are layering these interventions onto a dysregulated nervous system, the nervous system can't integrate those things as well as it can when it's regulated. So you're not getting the optimal results that you could get out of that supplementation or out of that detox or out of that PT regimen. So that's why we do that triangle, that hierarchy of healing, because if we start at the bottom with the autonomic nervous system, and then you add in those movement-based therapies, and then you add in those gut and microbiome stuff or immune system support or whatever that specific person is struggling with, you get the best bang for your buck with that, because now the nervous system goes, oh, thank you. I needed this too. Thank you for that help. But when you're in a state of fight or flight, I don't care how many vitamins you're pouring into your body. Your nervous system goes, I don't care. I'm not even absorbing that. I'm over here white knuckling it and just trying to live. That's all I'm doing.
Wow. Wow. So what would you, I mean, I am that mom that the first place I took my babies was the chiropractor.
Yeah, I know you did.
So, but I didn't know anything.
I didn't have that experience. You know, we talk about the perfect storm in my practice all the time, by the way, my next perfect storm workshop is on Tuesday, August 12th. Yes, in my Albany clinic. It's free. Come ask any questions. We provide childcare, so you can bring your kids. You don't have to get a babysitter. They can color, they can play. We have a whole playroom in the office.
Beautiful.
But I was a perfect storm kid, right? I was born forceps delivery. My parents did everything the pediatricians say. I was formula fed. I had all the vaccines. I was that colicky baby until I found my thumb. As soon as I became a thumb sucker, I was self-soothing, right? But then I was that sick kid. I mean, antibiotics at least once a year for ear infections, for strep. I even had Coxsackie virus. I had stomach issues all the time. And I grew up in a household where you had to drink your whole glass of milk every night at dinner. And I was told by the doctors I was lactose intolerant. That's what they said. Then I went into high school. As a teenager, I was anxious. I was put on anxiety medication. When I got my menstrual cycle, I never had regular cycles. So what do? Oh, let's put him on birth control. Birth control was never intended to be hormone regulation by any means. Birth control is meant for one thing and one thing only, to prevent unwanted pregnancy. So I went through all those perfect storm things, and I saw a chiropractor by accident. I wasn't seeking out chiropractic care. I knew nothing about that. All I knew was I go to the doctor and I do whatever they say. And they told me this pill is going to fix this, and the end, right? I got a job working for chiropractors because I was homeschooling their children. I was a Spanish teacher. And they offered me free chiropractic care as part of my benefits for working for them. And I was petrified. I made them let me watch them adjust people for a whole month before I ever let them touch me. I was absolutely petrified. I thought it was crazy. I had never even heard the word chiropractic before. But within a month of me getting adjusted, I could have dairy, no problem. I got off that anxiety medication. I started having regular cycles. And I went, what in the world? What is going on here? But it still was 3 years of me working for them, watching the miracles in their office day after day before I said, okay, I'm going to go to chiropractic school. But what I found out in chiropractic school is while chiropractors talk about the nervous system all the time, what are they analyzing? They're analyzing the spine, right? Which is structure. And yes, structure determines function. I'm not denying that. But we're extrapolating information. We're saying, oh, well, I see either on an x-ray or I feel from my palpation that this vertebra is out of alignment. Well, I know the nerves that are there. So I know that where this vertebra is misaligned, it must be affecting these nerves. But now we have the ability to actually measure what's going on in the nervous system and do an actual analysis of the nervous system. And so what we are able to do differently in our practice is apply chiropractic techniques that match that person's nervous system. So for example, I talked about those stages of being in dysregulation. When you're in that sympathetic dominance, that tension stage, yes, it's going to look like tension in the body, right? What's a protective mechanism? If I heard a loud crash outside right now, what would I do? This, right? This hunched in posture. How many women do you hear talk about how they feel like their shoulders are up to their ears? They want their husbands to rub their shoulders every night, right? Because they're in that sympathetic dominance, that protection response. An appropriate technique for a nervous system in that state is a very light, calming technique. Not a big, let's go crack something, let's put a bunch of energy in there. But when we're in a state of neurological exhaustion, they need that energy. They need those types of adjustments that really put energy into the system there. So we're able to match appropriate techniques for people. Even the same patient, visit to visit, isn't getting the same adjustment because we're matching the state of their nervous system on that day in that moment. And so we're able to provide really personalized adjustments. So that's why we call them neurotonal adjustments, because we're matching the tone of the nervous system with that adjustment.
Wow. Really specific. And you know exactly what's going on. I mean, it's like a map.
It is a map. And we do new scans every 12 visits because we want to reevaluate all the changes the nervous system has made, right? If I'm looking at the same thing on visit 12 that I was looking at on visit 1, I'm not doing my job. Right? How many times have you heard someone say, oh, I go to the chiropractor and they do the same thing over and over. Every time I go there, they do the same thing. Then that means your nervous system isn't actually integrating that adjustment. We need to be making sure that we're matching techniques and that we're only adjusting where the primary subluxations are. And subluxation is that fancy word for an area of tension and dysregulation in the nervous system. But so just because there's pain in one place doesn't mean that that's a primary subluxation. And so when we go and adjust all these compensations, we're actually removing the nervous system's ability to try to adapt to what's going on there. So you'll notice in our practice, we're not adjusting 5, 6, 7 things in one visit. We're adjusting 1 or 2 things each visit so that the nervous system can focus right there. The analogy I like to use with parents is if one of your kids comes home from school with homework assignments and they've got to do this chemistry experiment and these 20 math problems and write a 3-page essay tonight, are they going to do any one of those 3 things at 100%? Are they going to do it excellently? No, but if they had that one thing to focus on tonight, they could really pour everything into it. And that's the same thing with the input we're putting into the nervous system. We want the nervous system to really be able to focus on that area instead of just blasting it with so many things at once. So we have a clinic in Albany and we have a clinic in Wilton. It's just past the Saratoga line. So obviously, step 1 is get your autonomic nervous system checked, okay? And Dale has VIP passes for our practice that make your scans only $47, not $200. So tap into her for that. You do have to present it when you come, but tap into her for that. Just kind of touch on a couple little things that people can do on their own, whether it's in addition to getting their nervous system checked, or maybe they're not local. But if you're not local, go to pxdocs.com. There is a directory there that you can find a neurotunnel chiropractor near you. I believe there's about 1,000 of us right now in that directory, but new doctors are getting certified all the time. So I just want people to know where they can find a PX doc. But also things that you can do, having a consistent bedtime routine, right? Making sure that we're going to bed and getting up at the same time every day. And also really try to get morning sunlight in your eyes. Like as the sun is coming up, sunlight in your eyeballs, preferably without glasses or lenses on, which is very difficult for me because without these contacts, I wouldn't even be able to see your face right now. So, but why? That's giving information to our brain so that it can prepare to make melatonin for nighttime. So light exposure at dawn is really, really helpful. Not eating heavy meals close to bedtime. That's also really important for your parasympathetic nervous system because when we're sleeping, we're in parasympathetic and you don't want your parasympathetic to be focused on digesting while you're sleeping. You want it to be healing, growing, and repairing and recharging you, not focused on digestion. So that will help as well.
So how far apart would you say from dinner to bed?
3 hours.
Okay.
I try to make, which is difficult for me because I see patients until 6:30 at night and I'm in bed. I try to be asleep by 8:30. So a lot of times for me, that looks like having a really big, healthful lunch. And then I'll have some bone broth when I get home or before bed. Cause that's giving me good collagen, giving me good nutrients, giving me good protein, but it's not stressing my digestive system to have to break it down. I can absorb all of that, but I don't have to break it down.
Yeah, I notice when I eat late, like at a conference or something, it's really hard to sleep.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, now you know why.
I know, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Trying to keep your room nice and
Yeah.
cool is very important, and as dark as possible. Even if you can put little stickers over the little red lights on your TV or your alarm clock or all of those lights, because we have to remember our brain is receiving information through our sensory system, right? And so what's coming in through our eyes is giving our brain information. When we're under all these fluorescent lights late at night, so at night too, if it's dark outside, try to keep the lighting in your house as low as possible, and preferably not overhead lights. So like a table lamp instead of something over you, because your nervous system will interpret that as, oh, there's still sun. There's still sunlight. It's not time to turn off yet. So that is also really helpful.
The Skagit at night, phones,
Oh yeah. Well, yes, screens. Let's try to not be on
technology.
screens. Let's try to not be on screens. But I'm sure people know about blue light blocking glasses. And actually, I know I'm in the minority, but I do not have an iPhone. I have a Samsung. So I don't know if iPhones have this, but I feel like if Samsung does, I'm sure iPhones do. But there's a setting on mine that I can click it and it makes my screen red. It's a red light screen instead of a blue light screen. So that can be helpful too. I have patients when I tell them not to be on screens for an hour before bedtime, they all panic. They go, well, what am I going to do? I mean, you could read, you could talk to your family. Think about that. You could actually talk to your family. You could journal, you could meditate, you could get your home prepared. Like that's another great thing to do to calm the nervous system is I get my clothes ready for the next day. I make sure that my what maybe meal prep for the next day, or to take that time to set myself up for the next day. So then my nervous system knows, oh, it's safe to calm down. Everything is ready for tomorrow.
Wow, this is fantastic. I can't thank you enough. We will be back. We will definitely be back. So if you
Yes,
want to
we
drop in the
will.
comments some things that you would like for us to cover, I love talking about babies and kids. So maybe we'll go
Yeah.
into that a little more at some
And I can
point.
tie anything to
So
the nervous
yeah,
system. I mean, ask my friends and family. It's probably annoying to them that I tie everything to the nervous system. But so you could give me
yes.
any topic. But also that directory, pxdocs.com, there are articles on anything you can think of. You can go in there and go through categories. You can do a search. So if you're wondering, oh, well, maybe I'm worried that there's mold in my house and my kid has mold, and how does that affect the nervous system? If you're worried about sleep, if you're wondering about digestion, if you're wondering about motor tics, I mean, you name it, you can go in there and there's well-researched articles written by doctors that can really kind of help you navigate the neurological ties to those things.
Fantastic. All right, Dr. Rhiannon, thank
Thank
you
you,
again
Gail.
so much. And we will be back. Share this video. People need to know about this.